Ever since the end of Volume 7, fans of RWBY have been wondering what exactly is going on with Cinder. I mean, just look at that! She's getting eaten by a Grimm arm! And today I am confident that I have an answer as to what exactly is going on. Hello everyone, Lars here with another Writer's Theory, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And one of the coolest things that you can do as a writer is lay significant details right in plain sight. Details that the audience doesn't realize just how important they are until much later in the story. And even better is not just when it's like, hey, that's a really cool detail right there, and now it makes a little bit more sense, but when these little details become intricate to the overall plot. An excellent example of this is in the Harry Potter series, when at the end of the book series we see just how important Harry's first snitch is, and the Deluminaire that Dumbledore had, and about how a lie for socks, a lie that Dumbledore says about socks, ends up being one of the most emotional gut punches in the entire series. And that is brilliant narrative payoff. And what is happening to Cinder by the end of Volume 7 is in exactly the same vein as all of that. I think we are all in agreement that Cinder is being devoured by that Grimm arm that she has. What is amazing is that even just this small visual detail in Volume 7 is already the payoff of 6 other volumes worth of work. But it doesn't stop there, because what we see happening to Cinder provides us with a wonderful opportunity to theorize about what will happen down the line. We can all say what we will about character arcs and plot development within the show RWBY, but this one detail with Cinder's arm is amazing. It tells a story in and of itself. So let's get into the grimy details. It all goes back to Volume 1, though we don't truly see that until the flashback in Volume 3, when we get to see Cinder fight Amber and steal her powers. When Emerald and Mercury pin Amber down, Cinder pulls out a glove. This is no mere accessory. This is Salem's gift. A Grimm that will allow her to steal the Fall Maiden's powers. It connects with Amber and drains the power from her, transferring it directly to Cinder. But when Crow cuts the connection, the glove appears to merge with Cinder, and she gets this really cool tattoo on her back. The Grimm bug went inside of her, and quite possibly became part of her. Now, for an interesting detail, when the bug arrives, there is a strange red warp portal that comes out of the glove and the palm of Cinder's hand. That same portal shows itself again whenever Cinder uses her maiden powers against Crow and then later against Glinda. This is important because it marks a direct link between Cinder, the maiden powers that she has stolen, and the Grimm that she used to help her get them. Even after she claims all of the Maiden's powers, and they are now in her, we can also see that the Grimm mark remains, very likely because the Grimm is now a part of her. When Ruby arrives at the end of her fight with Pyrrha and watches her friend get obliterated, Ruby's silver eyes then activate for the first time within the series. We see it clearly affect both the Wyvern and Cinder. And why Cinder? Because she has a Grimm grafting in her. For a quick point of clarification, let's jump on over to Volume 4. Volume 4's dialogue almost makes it seem like Ruby's silver eyes hurt Cinder because she had the Maiden's powers. Claiming that gift could turn into a weakness. At least that's what it sounds like Salem is saying. Some of us thought that when Salem was talking about this gift, that she was talking about the Maiden's powers. But in Volume 6, we learn how magic was the gift of the gods. The brother of Death and Darkness says that magic is his gift, but his brother affirms that magic was their gift, that both the brothers of Light and Darkness had created magic and presented it to humanity. The brother of Light made Silver Eyes, however, to combat the Grimm. selfless thoughts of family, friends, love, and others counter the fear, jealousy, and all-consuming hatred that make up the Grimm. So, if it wasn't then the magic that was being attacked by the Silver Eyes, because that is a combined gift of the gods, then it had to be the Grimm that was inside of Cinder. That is what was being attacked, harming Cinder to the extent that she was. So, let's return to Salem's warning to Cinder that the gift that she gave her is contingent upon her own hunger and desire for power. If her hunger is not greater than the gift, then it will turn on her. The gift will turn on Cinder. And Salem pushes Cinder throughout the 4th volume so that way she can again show her hunger and her lust for power. In volumes 5 and 6, we really, as the audience, had no reason to doubt that Cinder's resolve to get stronger had wavered to any degree. But in volume 7, we finally see that the arm that she has been given is eating its way right up her bicep, and by the end of her fight with Winter and Penny, it has reached her shoulder and is now beginning to stretch in a weird membrane-like way across her collarbone. Cinder is being eaten by a Grimm! And frankly, this shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us by now, because Cinder has had a Grimm grafting in her since volume 1. And for those of you who need to brush up on your horticulture, grafting, and I use it very intentionally, grafting is done to mix 2 species of plants together to either make the resulting plant stronger or produce a new fruit or species. Salem's gift of grafting a Grimm into Cinder has the appearance of making her stronger, but I theorize that it is the beginning of Cinder's fall. Yep, I have no shame in saying that either. And oh boy, this is where the theorizing gets fun. You see, Cinder is the epitome of selfishness in this series, and I love how Mercury calls out Emerald on how stupid she is being for thinking that Cinder actually cares about them, or anyone else other than herself. The fallen maiden is a product of rage and jealousy so thorough that it has corrupted her to the very core, proven by the fact that she has a Grimm in her throughout the entire series. It is a great way of symbolizing just how dark and demented she is as a character from the very beginning, from volume 1. And her condition is becoming so bad that she is literally now transforming into a monstrous Grimm. So now it is time to theorize. What will happen next? Cinder has been given this grafting, and this grafting is changing her. She's becoming a new creature entirely. This gift is really not what it appears to be. And from where I stand, there are 3 big possibilities of what could happen next. The first route is, in my opinion, the blandest way to go, but it would certainly produce some amazing artwork. Basically, the first opportunity that we have for the narrative with this Grimm grafting is that Cinder becomes a full Grimm, eaten alive by her own negative feelings and too weak to control her own emotions that they turn on her and devour her. This is a very Brothers Grimm thing to do right here. The villains succumbing to their own vices and becoming too weak to be good like the hero or heroine of the story. This would result in a Grimm variation of Cinder that could then wield the maiden powers, and that would look awesome. But this would also be, I argue, a weak idea to go with the story, because a full Grimm could be blasted to smithereens by Ruby's eyes, and Grimm have no aura, making the fight less of a challenge. Sure, it would be a Grimm that would be a really heavy hitter with all this cool magic, but it would have no way of healing itself or of defending itself, other than just with a simple show of force. And that kind of a fight, while it would be very flashy, wouldn't have necessarily a whole lot of payoff at the very end. So let's look at the second route for this to go. And this is one that really excites me. Cinder, being eaten alive by this Grimm grafting, suddenly has a moment of clarity. She realizes that the gift from her fairy godmother is nothing more than a curse. She remembers her training, however, from Salem and just barely manages to stop the encroachment of the Grimm arm by bringing her emotions and her appetites under control at last. And then she becomes a third party within the story, seeking out ways to undermine both Team Ruby and Team Salem. This would be awesome to witness, because it would show character growth on Cinder's part, seeing that she can change, and she is very capable, so she could do it. And then she could start manipulating Emerald from within Salem's faction and pass information as well to the good guys about what Salem is doing, and then use her powers to steal the Relic of Choice before anyone gets to it, and essentially be the one who would hold the destiny of Remnant in her hands. It would be highly reminiscent of Padan Fane from the Wheel of Time, who, though a servant of the Evil One, decides to flip the script and screw everyone over. And taking this route would bring an element of uncertainty to the show that would be really neat to have. And it would really up the factor of, like, wow, what's going to happen next? Who's going to win? I mean, we already basically know that the good guys are going to win right here, but it would instill another element of uncertainty, which is something that the show really needs to do. The third route is one that falls more in line with my ongoing theory that Pyrrha is going to return to the series in the body of Cinder Fall. And I am going to update that theory later because we've learned a lot since Volume 7. But if I am correct, and this is a big if, I'm going to admit that right here, if I am correct that Pyrrha is within Cinder, this would actually explain something very important, something that the other two routes with this information do not address. Why has Cinder's hunger for power lessened? Because this gift, this Grimm grafting, is only kept in check by Cinder's own hunger for power. It has to be greater than the jealousy and anger of a Grimm. So why is it weakening? Cinder is angry. She is powerful. She lusts for power. She even has that crazy speech to Winter and to Penny. And yet the Grimm arm is overpowering her. It could be that a small, honest soul residing within her is subconsciously weakening that resolve. And as a result, the Grimm arm is devouring her. But how does that all fit into Pyrrha potentially coming back, especially since the Grimm arm is definitely winning this grisly tug of war? Well, despite the arm being a gift and a grafting, it is a wound to Cinder and her aura. In Volume 7, we get the hint that Jean will try extending his own aura in the future, and that as a result he will be able to heal more people. If such a healing blast caught Cinder within its radius, it could ruin that Grimm arm and result in dual auras being in one person. Pyrrha's aura and Cinder's suddenly being expanded, much like with what we see with Ozpin and Oscar. But like I said, this is a much larger theory for later. Essentially, one thing that we can agree on, though, is that big things are about to happen for Cinder, and really none of them are good for her, except for maybe route number 2 because she gets to be her own person. But her own lust for power has led her down a path of self-mutilation and destruction. In seeking to become stronger, she has only made herself weaker, and the presence of the Grimm arm represents that. While people decry Cinder as a character who lacks any sort of depth, the fact remains that this one arm tells a complete story of its own and gives us hints of what could come. And that alone is amazing storytelling. Alright, that'll do it for this theory. Again, if you want your own stories to look super cool, blend some details and some elements early on that will become relevant again as the story comes full circle. This is a really neat way of showing that, yes, I did actually know what I was going to do all along, and that everything that you have read up until this point actually matters. Because sometimes readers are like, why was that even important right there? Why did I go through this whole adventure when it seems like I could have just gotten to the end by skipping a whole bunch of pages? The details along the way are what make an adventure amazing. Or at least it's part of it. We also have to focus on the characters right here. But those details that blend in and make the world vibrant and just make it feel a little bit more real, can really pay off in the long run. If you want any more writing advice or thoughts on Ruby, you can check out our other videos or our episodes on Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. We also have writing exercises at our Pinterest page and writing discussions over at our subreddits. Please connect with us there, and until the next video, y'all, tschüss.